Welcome to the Canon Connected, where we read the connections, see the connections, and study the connections of the Bible. Greetings, it's day 5 of the Canon Connected, and as always, we're so glad you decided to join us. We're in the second part of a 3-part sub-series in this reading plan on marriage. We did creation the first 3 days, and now we're doing 3 days of marriage, because in Genesis 1 and 2, the transition between the two is seamless. There's a lot of overlap and a lot we can learn from studying the two subjects back to back. Yesterday was the biblical basis of marriage. Today is physical intimacy in marriage. And now, if you've seen the readings, you know Song of Solomon is one of them, and all the others support what Song of Solomon says. So I'll give a disclaimer, and I don't think the content's going to be as long today, so it's a good time for a disclaimer, although I'd probably give it, even if the content were not shorter. And that is, because of the subject matter, this may be an episode that you don't want younger children to hear, probably younger children, and maybe not even older children or teenagers. So just keep that in mind. I am not going to try to be provocative unbiblically, okay? I'm not seeking to be edgy. I definitely don't want this to turn into clickbait, all right? We are studying the Bible with as much integrity and as much humility as we can. I will talk about this with as much grace and as much tact as I possibly can and as much maturity, but understanding that the subject matter may be a little bit awkward, and this is the kind of thing where I want to achieve a balance that I think it's probably very easy not to want to achieve. One, I don't want to be provocative, okay, and just say things in a rated R sort of way. I think the Bible often, though not always, tries not to speak and communicate truth in those type of ways. There are exceptions to that. We will get to Ezekiel 16 in a reading later this week, and it's entitled Rated R Grace, and we'll have to give a big disclaimer before that one because the language of the Bible is so plain. But also, I fear that we'd go from wanting to be provocative, okay, some people at least, and edgy, to avoiding this subject altogether, and I don't think that's healthy either. So, with as much God's Spirit guidance as possible, we will delve into this, okay? The connections that I wanted you to see are just a couple of them, but they are major, and I believe they are important. One is, again, the idea that when you read Proverbs 5:15 through 19, when you read Song of Solomon, and even when you read Hebrews 13:4, the idea that marriage is supposed to be physical and it is supposed to be sexual is obvious. Okay, Song of Solomon isn't entirely about this, but it is in part. And I think, again, this is very important, and it's healthy for us in the right context, in the right ways, and with the right words to talk about this sort of thing. Maybe you believe that a podcast like this isn't, and you want to skip this one. I'll totally understand. But I believe that we should deal with this, again, in ways that will bring honor and glory to God and also help our marriages, okay? I think that's a huge part of the Bible. Again, marriage was instituted at the very beginning, end of Genesis chapter 2. It's the most important relationship there is. So understanding it, all of it, because I believe in Genesis 2, even when it says the two will become one flesh, that's a physical thing. Marriage unites people mentally, emotionally, spiritually in Christianity, but it is even a physical unification. And we do not need to be embarrassed about the fact that the Bible, absolutely confirms and celebrates the fact that marriage is supposed to be physical and sexual. You see this, again, Proverbs 5, Song of Solomon, Hebrews 13:4. It says it plainly because it says the marriage bed is to be undefiled or to be kept pure, and it contrasts that with sexual immorality. And I fully believe it is not a complete theology of marriage or sex if we only talk about the sinful part of it. And churches are very willing to do that, and I understand our hesitancy to talk about the good part of it, especially in mixed crowds, especially when children are there. But again, I hope that today is a God-ordained opportunity to talk about this. Connections from Proverbs, Song of Solomon, Hebrews 13:4, they all are affirming and even celebrating the idea that marriage is supposed to be physical. But another thing I want you to see, because there's more to it than that, and that is that there are strong connections between Song of Solomon and Psalm 44, between the idea that marriage is supposed to be verbal and romantic, okay? And this is extremely important as well, because marriage is not just 1 Corinthians 13, which was written to a church and not even a married couple. It's very important for us to be kind, to be patient, to not be self-seeking in church relationships and in marriages. But a good biblical marriage, a good theology of marriage is not just going to be kind, be patient, put the other person first, as important as those are. I really believe a biblical theology of marriage will delve into what Song of Solomon says, not just about the physical part, but the way the bride and the groom talk to each other. I said I wasn't going to preach, but I was just going to show connections, but it's really hard not to when you read some of the things from Song of Solomon that I think should be a crucial part of marriage. And the lack of these things, as well as not being kind and patient, may lead to the destruction of marriage and may lead to poor marriages. And I look at myself first there. Song of Songs 1:2, may he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Song of Solomon 1:8, if you yourself do not know, most beautiful among women, go forth on the trail of the flock and pasture your young goats by the tents of the shepherds. To me, my darling, you are like my mare among the chariots of Pharaoh. Oh, that's kind of an odd illustration for us, but you can pretty plainly see he's saying that you are more beautiful than the most beautiful animal from the richest king. Your cheeks are lovely with ornaments, your neck with strings of beads. Song of Solomon 1:15, how beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful you are. Your eyes are like doves. And then the bride speaks. God doesn't play favorites here. Both the husband and the wife, the bride and the groom, are both complimenting each other physically, romantically, verbally. How handsome you are, she says, my beloved, and so pleasant. How about Song of Solomon 2:5? Sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. Isn't that beautiful? The God of the entire universe, who reduced himself to human language, to noun, adjectives, is the master author. This is not just truth, it's a beautiful, romantic way to communicate truth. And I love it. I've mentioned this in a previous connected reading. God is creative in how he communicates. The God of creation is creative. And so when he says, and he inspires whoever wrote Song of Solomon, or whoever wrote it in his honor, sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. That's beautiful. That's romantic. Song of Solomon 2:14, let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. We should long for the face and the voice of our spouse, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. When we stop thinking in those terms, we enter into a very dangerous aspect of how Satan wants to kill our marriages. Song of Solomon 3:4, I found him whom my soul loves. I've seen that at a lot of weddings, including my own, thanks to my wife. Song of Solomon 4:7, oh, this is amazing. You are altogether beautiful, my darling, and there is no flaw in you. How badly do you think marriages have been messed up because we do not communicate this way? How much would it strengthen our marriage? I know people say talk is cheap, and I get it. If a person talks one way and acts another, that's the height of hypocrisy, and words can be empty and hollow. But man, when you have the action and the attitude and the biblical integrity behind it, yes, on top of those things, we should be communicating these beautiful, romantic, life-giving, life-affirming words. I don't know much about women. I'm not an expert, but I feel like I can say safely that women want to hear this. There's no flaw in you. This should be a part of marriage just as much as being kind and being patient. Song of Solomon 4:9. You have made my heart beat faster, my sister, my bride. You have made my heart beat faster with a single glance of your eyes. How beautiful is your love, my bride. How much better is your love than wine. Oh, this is so romantic, and it's verbal. Song of Solomon 6:5. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. I think that's my favorite verse in the whole book. Are we communicating with our spouses this way? I hope people feel conviction. I sure do. If you think I practice this stuff well, I don't. How much easier was it for me when we were first dating and then engaged and then the early years of marriage and then after you're married for a while? I think about 1 Corinthians 13 a lot. Definitely don't practice that very well either, but I need to think about Song of Solomon 6:5 when I think about my wife as well. God communicated this to us. Song of Solomon 6:8, there are 60 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one. How many affairs happen, do you think, because men and women don't practice this? And I'll speak primarily to men because I am one. Both accountable, again, Song of Solomon is accountable to both husband and wife. Man, this is how we need to be communicating to our spouse. Doesn't matter how many women are around in my church, in my community, in our spheres of influence. You are the only one. That's part of marriage. And then the wife, again, like synergy. I talked about that with love and respect. The woman respects, the man loves. It's like a synergy. Well, the man speaks life into his wife by talking about how beautiful she is and how he only has eyes for her. And so she says in 7:10, I belong to my husband and his desire is for me. Biblical marriage. It's physical. It's romantic. Song of Solomon 8:6, set me as a seal upon your heart and as a seal upon your arm, for love is as strong as death. Wow. God creative in his communication of truth. And Song of Solomon 8:7, many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. Biblical marriage is not just being kind and being patient and not being self-seeking. Biblical marriage is communicating verbally and with gestures that our spouse is attractive to us and that we only have eyes for them. Psalm 45 echoes this. This is where the connection comes in. My heart overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like a pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Again, both genders communicate in these two passages. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. And then the man on verse 10 and 11, hear, O daughter, and consider and incline your ear. Forget your people in your father's house, and the king will desire your beauty. So the applications are very simple. Marriage is physical, it's sexual, it's romantic, it's verbally affirming, it is to be enjoyed. As awkward as it may be, we don't have to be ashamed of these things, and in the right ways, in the right context, and using the right kind of language, yes, the church should be celebrating this. And so I hope that I've done this justice today. Again, I have zero desire, to talk about these things in a way that draws attention to myself or in a way that takes attention away from God. But since God made these passages, not just Song of Solomon, Proverbs 5, Hebrews 13, again, even all the way back to Genesis chapter 2, the two will become one flesh. In Psalm 45, he is communicating to us things about marriage that I think the church has often been ashamed to talk about, or some maybe have gone to the other extreme and tried to be provocative in talking about. But it's healthy and it's grace-filled. And this kind of thing absolutely can not just save some marriages, it can make others much more healthy than they are. So I thank you for listening. Tomorrow we'll finish with the marriage, talking about marriage and divorce. And I know that's another difficult topic, so I hope you'll come back tomorrow as we continue to read the connections, see the connections, and study the connections. Thank you.